All right, guys, welcome back to the podcast. Oh gosh, my throat is killing me. I probably shouldn't have hit record yet. I just took a hit off of this distilled grape ape timeless cartridge, and it basically ripped my throat to shreds. I haven't really vaped anything in a long time, so wow, that was a lot. I think I'm gonna stop there. Anyways, all right, today the topic is going to be based on a Ralph Smart video, and also in his book, his newer book. I don't know the old ones or one, but there's a chapter that's called "Why Are You Single?" or "Why You're Single?" or something along those lines. So when you go on his, when you go on his YouTube channel or website or anywhere, it's from like a year ago, talking about why somebody's single, and or in general why you might be single. I just found it interesting because a lot of it was like, how should I explain this? I think a lot of people make I don't even know how to describe what I'm thinking. Maybe it's what I vaped. I don't know. But basically, a lot of people online, or so whether that's like dating advice or some kind of relationship channels or topics, just covering those things, or sometimes you see excuse me, sometimes you see people, what am I trying to say? Sometimes you just see people on like websites, like for example, like when you Google like relationships or something like that, something that you would have previously seen in one of those, like, I don't know, usually women's or some type of relationship magazine or column or something like that. There are two types of perspectives that I notice. One of them seems to come from, I don't know if it's considered like an ego perspective, and another one's considering kind of more of maybe like a balanced, well-rounded explanation of what's going on, right? So a briefer example of this, which is something that Ralph Smart also talks about a little bit, is the, like, I think he kind of alludes to it, kind of like finances, like financial health, as one of the kind of like categories to be like balanced in, or to kind of have together, on like together within yourself, so that when you're kind of in a relationship with somebody, it's not like uneven, everything's falling on them, unless that's not a burden to them or a stressor. And I know Graham Stephan, he has a channel where he's reviewing, somebody sends him videos, so they have these videos about relationships. One that I like is Divorce Court, because I'm a huge Judge Faith Jenkins fan, but there's another that's called, what's it called? It's not about divorce necessarily. It's more about like who owes child support, I guess. I think it's called Support Court. That's what it is. And then geez, I'm sorry for clearing my throat like this. It's like, it's just kind of bad. Like, I was not expecting for that to hit me so hard. Like, wow. Like, I was coughing a lot there. So Yeah, so Graham Stephan, he kind of reviews these divorce court videos or other videos about like court cases where they have like some kind of financial related issue going on. His stance is more like, what advice can I provide, or what kind of value can I provide based on these kind of situations and these relationships, or that come up in these court cases that might be common kind of arguments that couples might be having or partners might be having. And it's financial related. It's got a financial kind of like kind of grip on things. And then some other lady reviewed one of his videos about that divorce court episode, and then he went and reviewed her video. So the video he was reviewing was about some other lady reviewing his video. So I would say Graham Stephan's perspective seemed a lot more balanced. He was kind of focusing on, okay, there's like a relationship stressor because of like somebody's financial situation, and spoiler alert, the financial situation had to do with one of them making like a whole lot of money. I think the woman made 100,000 or so, and the male was way more wealthy than she was, and she was paying, I'm maybe mixing up these episodes because I watch a lot of different court stuff. I think the rent may have been total 5,000 or something, and she was paying half of it. And then like, so Graham's perspective was kind of looking at, okay, what things could come up, like making it so that might be fair. Like he's giving her, she's in debt, and then of like, she was saying she had like $40,000 of debt. And then the guy gave her a gift that was like some type of artwork or something you'd hang on like a wall or like a ceiling or something like that. I don't know if it was like an art piece or a really great lamp of some sort or something like that. It was basically a household type of decoration. And then the argument was kind of like, at part of it was kind of like, okay, does she sell the gift at $30,000 to pay off her $30,000 debt? And then the woman kind of, the woman who was reviewing Graham's video, she had this perspective about this guy. Like he's the guy, he's making more money, and then Graham was kind of like, well, is she having that perspective because he's a guy and she's a woman, or is the perspective from he's making more money and she's making way less? Like it was kind of hard to tell, because a lot of times in the court videos they don't ask like every question, so the people aren't talking about everything, so you kind of fill in the blanks of like what's kind of going on with this guy, what's kind of going on with this woman, like is somebody taking advantage, is somebody trying to like buy somebody, like what's going on. And there's the perspective that's kind of like Graham Stephan, that tends to be kind of like well-rounded, like trying to see, is this balanced, whatever the problems are that are going on? How can we look at it from a financial standpoint, and then also from a perspective of some form of like balance in the relationship? And the other style of that people kind of use looking at relationships is kind of more like taking sides maybe, or kind of judgmental, like not in a way of like how could you adjust, but more like taking it's kind of like a defensive stance in a way, kind of like, because the lady who was reviewing Graham's channel, it's so confusing because there's like 3 different people involved, but she was reviewing the court video that he saw and how he reacted to it, and she also mentioned a lot of things kind of in the woman's favor, it seemed, and he was kind of trying to see like, okay, like who cares about what gender the people are they trying to like, address some kind of roles, or is it really fair? Like his perspective is, emotionally, is it fair to both people in this couple? Do they have some kind of arrangement or understanding, or are they just okay with things the way they are? And they're trying to find out what the financial issues are. Like Graham's perspective was, what are the financial issues, but related to the couple. Her perspective was more like, the woman makes less, he makes more, why does she have to pay rent at all? Why is she even paying rent? But her perspective seemed to be more like taking the side of the woman and seeing that the guy who has more money is wrong, for whatever reason she was saying that. And so I think, getting back to the original thing I was trying to say about Ralph Smart's video, when it comes to like being single and things like that, I think there are people who actually, I mean, he didn't necessarily say this, but I was just thinking about it, like, because some material I can gravitate towards more, like Ralph Smart stuff, like Graham Stephan stuff. Even when I'm like reading just like articles on Google or whatever, it's usually not like the gossip column style or the magazine style of writing where it's like, you know, Gigi's relationship corner, or like 10 ways to get a man, or whatever, like those kind of things where it's like, you know, wear this and smile a lot and toss your hair and all these kind of things are like, really? And it's like, yeah, maybe it can be like some kind of clues or whatever, but it seems like that type of advice is kind of coming from this other kind of place where it's like maybe not too genuine or too, it's not something you could keep up necessarily, I would say. Like, you're not, that's not something you could keep up, like that kind of stuff of like flirting around, like when you first meet somebody or when you don't really know them well. I don't really see that going, you know, I mean, yeah, I mean, people flirt, but I don't really see that going in a direction where it would be like, oh yeah, like this guy fell in love with this girl because she was, you know, tossing her hair in the club or whatever. Like, I would hope that it would be deeper than that, right? Like, there's not like a lot of depth to it, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And it kind of comes from like this other like layer of like, I don't know if it's really defensiveness or ego or like something where it's like people are kind of like taking a side or judgmental or something. I don't know the word, if there's an actual word for it or like a phrase, but those are the types of things that I kind of don't really gravitate towards. Like, it's kind of like, I notice I don't. But then I also notice in relationships, like not myself like necessarily, but I'm just saying, like, you know, you might know a lot of people that say if you argue or get into some sort of a debate, like friendly even, like the way that they kind of make their argument is based on, you know, emotional kind of like thinking, kind of like like I think this person should be doing this, how dare they do that, so I'm mad, you know, and so I'm just gonna argue from the perspective that I think that they should be doing this other thing that they haven't been doing because it bothers me, versus, you know, what's going on like on both sides of the coin, like, you know, where are all of the barriers and problems kind of coming from, like from what angles, and like who is kind of maybe not so much responsible, but like who maybe isn't really looking at the whole big picture of what's happening, or like is somebody being vindictive or petty, or somebody being, you know, like kind of like the connections also between like what's actually happening. And so I think some people kind of have a broad view where they can kind of see the big picture of like, okay, if I do this, that person is gonna, you know, react that way. Or if, you know, or, you know, even trying to like learn to kind of like read a person's kind of like reactions to things. So like if you mention something, like kind of like studying them, like not in a way to be like weird about stuff, but just kind of like, you know, we don't all know each other 110% well. So if there's something that you want to know, sometimes people aren't just going to tell you everything. And sometimes people aren't like very consciously aware of like how they react or how they talk about something. And so they wouldn't necessarily outright just like say something, like for example, if somebody's gonna get like a bad grade on something, or thinks they're gonna get a bad grade, and then the other person, that like maybe they're on a date and the other person starts talking about like some perspective that they have on that situation, that like, yeah, like I've had those kind of experiences too, and I was glad at least to learn from the experience, even when I had like a jerk professor or whatever. And then the other person is kind of responding like, oh yeah, well, I'm still just mostly worried about my freaking grade, like, so it's kind of like, maybe they felt invalidated, maybe they kind of wanted someone to kind of like side with them, or felt like they were being like challenged about it or something. Like, it's hard to really tell, because they're not like, oh yeah, like, I felt like you were challenging me with that comment or whatever. It's just kind of like, okay, like, you're not going to be able to guess every single thing that a person tells you, or that how a person responds. You can't really guess everything. And then you also can't, expect them to kind of just like come out and tell you every single reason why they respond a certain way, and like every emotion attached to it, and every thought. It's like, that's not realistic. Maybe over time, but like I'm talking about, like, when people are first meeting each other and they're not really too aware of some things. Like, there's no way you can pick up on every single thing. There's a lot of subtle stuff like that where it's like, okay, like, maybe they're not taking that through their day and it's not like a problem, but then you might have noticed it and you're just kind of like, oh, like, I wonder, like, a lot of people just kind of let things like that go and don't really think about them, or, don't really consider like, oh, like, if this kind of situation happens again, maybe I'll see, like, if they react, a certain way or whatever, like, like, why are they reacting the way they are? And it doesn't necessarily have to be negative, and that wasn't even an example that made too much sense on a negative level. It's like, that would be like a non-issue with most people. It was like, I said my part, you said your part, and then like, let's just move on. That's not really like an argument necessarily, unless there was some kind of underlying kind of, I don't know, like, issue kind of going on there. But yeah, so Ralph Smart, he kind of talks a lot about like ways to balance, about different people's energy, connecting. For me, that's a huge one. Like, I don't like to be overwhelmed by people. I can easily get overwhelmed by people, and I work with people, so it's kind of like, I'm all kind of peopled out. So I prefer people that are kind of calm. They kind of have their own life, that aren't like needy and don't really like require me to kind of be like I like people who are kind of fully kind of okay on their own end, like, not necessarily perfect, right? And he was talking about that too, about the concept of perfection, where it's like, a lot of times people are picky and they want like this perfect person. And he kind of brings up the point like, oh, like, I'm not, like, he kind of says like, oh, I'm not, or I'm, like, maybe he is picky. Like, he was kind of mentioning about pickiness, and kind of how it really plays a role. If somebody's picky to the point where they want someone who's perfect and they're never going to find that person, like, there might be a perfect match for you, or a perfect match for someone else, but not necessarily a perfect match, like a perfect person. Like, they have no flaws, never make mistakes. And he was saying, like, if we look at our own selves, we all know that we all have flaws and we do make mistakes. And so we couldn't really, expect of somebody else to be like flawless and perfect, right? Even if it's not like behaviors or whatever, So that was one point. I mean, I can't remember every single point he was making, but he talked a lot about like, how people can kind of be whole on their own, like, not necessarily looking for like a second half necessarily. I know that's kind of a common phrase, but it kind of also implies that, like, you're not whole by yourself. And then the concept of like loving yourself, right? Like, because he was mentioning too, like a lot of people don't really love themselves. They kind of prioritize other stuff and then spend a lot of their time kind of maybe zoning out, and that's fine, but it's, important to, love yourself, know what that looks like, know what that's like, and kind of what you kind of need in your life, and how to get that from yourself, like not necessarily how to get that from somebody else, like other than just, social connections and like levels of intimacy and stuff like that. You can't really just do that alone necessarily all the time, I don't think. I mean, I've always heard people say, humans are social beings, and I don't know any, I mean, there are some people that aren't like too social, and there are rare, people who kind of just, there aren't so many of them, but I mean, people do exist that don't really like to hang out with people or socialize or interact, or maybe they're just not comfortable with it, but there are people who just don't prefer it too. And I know that's usually seen as like an issue, but maybe if it's not coming from a place of them feeling like it's an issue, it's just rare, I would say. For let's see. So when it comes to like, people's energy, like I kind of touched on that. I didn't really say too much about it, but like when it comes to people's energy, I mean, I think I can kind of be friends with just about anybody. There's only kind of one type of person that I just really can't really be around, or the types of people who either don't care or are so unaware that they just don't care about people. That they're not caring, that they're not concerned, or they're just not able to control themselves, or they just have no awareness whatsoever of how their reactions impact another person. Or they just might not care about it, but those types of people, just the lack of caring, because there can be people that are obnoxious, that are kind of like a little bit of jerks, and it's kind of like, okay, I kind of get it, like you're kind of a hard ass, or you're kind of just like annoying, but it's like I can still hang out with those people and still be friends with them, but just maybe, at, limited contact together with them. Like I can kind of interact with them like mildly, or like some of the time, and not like overburden myself, and still be friends. I mean, I'm usually, the kind of person who usually like, I'm there to kind of give everybody the benefit of the doubt for the most part. Like, and I've got some friends that I'm thinking about, they're pretty obnoxious, but I mean, I love them, they're great friends. It's just, oh my gosh, like sometimes I'm like, really, like I'm like so annoyed right now, but and then most of my friends are pretty chill, like nobody's really annoying. But yeah, I do have a few friends that are just like, oh my gosh. And I notice a lot of people don't really connect with those people too well. I don't really care, I just limit the amount that I kind of interact with them, or the stuff that I talk with them about. I'm kind of like, all right, you're really annoying about this, so we're just not going to talk about it anymore. I'm not going to bring it up. Like, I just kind of avoid it. Because it's not needed to. If it's like political stuff or whatever, it's like, we don't really need to be talking about this. Like, you can have your own opinion and I'll have my own opinion, like whatever. But, I would say some people's energy for me is just like on a friend level, it's not really as much of a concern as it would be if I were like in a dating relationship with them. 'Cause dating, I kind of like people that in a way sort of match my energy, like maybe a little more energetic, because I think my energy level is quite low. But I don't know, like, even I feel like when people have low energy, like not like heavy, dense, like depressive energy, but like low, like they're chill, like people who like don't give off those kind of like energetic kind of waves of like they're always waiting for something to happen. There's the anticipation, or like they just can't sit still, or they're just not comfortable, or they're just kind of like checked out, or like, I just it's kind of a hard energy for me to be around on a regular basis. It drains me. It just drains me either way. Either extreme really drains me, when it's like somebody who's really heavy, really kind of like I think there's a difference between being heavy and being kind of like realistic, but and like connected with like things that are going on, because during the pandemic everything is kind of like just wild. But I wouldn't necessarily say that there's really reason to be like worried, like on that level about other stuff, like. But yeah, there's a lot going on, but I feel like it's not, like, I don't know, like, I think it does bring out a different energy in a lot of people who maybe didn't expect that. But I do also think it's yeah, it sucks basically. But I do understand how that, I would kind of try to almost take that out of the equation, but we kind of can't, because that's a reality right now, right? So I don't really want to say like, oh yeah, like this doesn't apply, because it actually does. I hope that stuff that's directly related to the pandemic won't apply, and while hopefully sooner rather than later. But I mean, I honestly think that this is just a new chapter in our lives that we're just opening, and this is it's gonna stay around society for a while. I mean, we have had in human history other things that happened with viruses and diseases and things, where they became something that we all get, and like like, for example, at least in a lot of North America, a lot of people had never had like flus and colds and stuff like that until the Europeans were kind of more introduced. Long story to all of that, but yeah, like, it spread to people, but also people were forced to kind of get it, and it wiped out like so many populations of people, like multiple diseases did. And it was strategically done by people who had planned to do that. But then at the same time, it wasn't previously a part of something that was seen or spread over like where we live. That was something that was introduced, for lack of a better term and explanation. Like, it was something that was brought, or given or forced upon people. It wasn't something that had always existed. And that's kind of similar to the virus that's going around now, and the strain of it, or whatever you call it. Like, those things didn't exist before here. At least if they did, it wasn't like it is now, just like wiping people out and stuff. It wasn't like an international concern, right? This is something that we haven't really seen, at least in my lifetime. I haven't really seen it. I think in most people's lifetimes by now, unless you're like pretty old, I'll be like, what, 120 or so, 112 years old or something. If you're like 112, dude, seriously, you gotta contact me. If you're 112 and you listen to podcasts and you came across this, dude, contact me. Like, seriously. Oh my gosh. We gotta talk. But, yeah, I would say that isn't something that was common before. So now it's something that I would say it is becoming part of our life. Unfortunately, it's freaking a part of things now. So when that comes to people's energy shifting or being jerks or being kind of like overwhelmed and overstressed and super anxious and really depressed, like, if that's something I've definitely noticed, not only because I work in like the mental health field, but also because I just notice it around more, and people are speaking up more about it. Like, I would say in the last, I mean, even working in mental health for over 6 years now, whatever, for about 8 years or so, I've been in the field. 7-8 years I've been in the field, like either through practicum or paid employment. Before that, I was in school up until like golly knows when. Like, I was in school up until about like 6 years ago or so, pretty much about 6 years ago. And so I was like freaking 32 or something. Like, I've been in school for like 32 years. Since I was like maybe 4 years old, I've been in school. So, I mean, that's a freaking long time, right? To be in school. Oh, that's sad to think. I never even thought about that, actually. But anyways, yeah, I've been in school for a really long time. So it's kind of like, I've never even seen this level of, being around mental health providers and people in the field and people kind of off branches of the field and professors and like psychiatrists and psychologists and therapists and social workers and all the types of people I've ever been around in the field for, I don't know, 20 something years, through school or work or whatever. Like, I've never seen or heard this amount of people like talking about their moods, their emotional states, friends included, like people who have been coworkers and colleagues and classmates and all that included, professors, like people do share and have shared. I would say maybe more, at least with the crowd of people I've known through the schools I've gone through and stuff like that. Like, if it wasn't connected to the church, the people were pretty open-minded and kind of like not so guarded, I would say. Those were the types of people I kind of met. They weren't so like emotionally guarded about everything. I kind of was, like, far more than like most. I had to kind of like, for me, I've kind of broken out more, but I honestly, I mean, I'm still pretty emotionally guarded. I kind of like to keep my distance and just, I'm kind of like a I don't know what kind of animal, just kind of like sit back and I'll observe for a while. And if I'm feeling it, then I'll come join. But it's like, usually I kind of like keep a distance and kind of observe things when I don't know people. I'll just kind of like, it's not that I'm like too apprehensive about interacting. It's just, that's kind of my preferred way of kind of getting to know people. Is like, I'll sit back, let them talk, learn about what they have to say, kind of see how they are with other people, see kind of how they do things and kind of like their energy on different days and stuff like that. And then I slowly warm up to them depending on kind of how they are. But I think that actually helps me with people, to learn a lot more about them in the beginning. Like, I'm not necessarily purposely not trying to share about myself, but it's kind of like, why put in that energy and that effort if like I don't really know if I really want to be like interacting with this person in the first place. That's kind of how my mindset is. It's like, like, because I like, once I start talking to somebody, I want to be like around them. If I'm like engaging with this person, I don't want to like stop talking to them and be like, oh, we had this weird like falling out. Like, I don't think I've ever had that kind of experience with anybody, where it's like we had some big major like blowout thing. Like, I've fallen out of touch with people. I've been annoying. They've been annoying. That's not really why we fell out of touch, but I've had like some sort of like maybe like disagreements or needed a break from people, but it was never like we hate each other, we never want to talk again, or like something like that. So, and that's kind of like things I try to avoid. Like, I'm like, I don't really need that in my life. I don't see myself trying to like disconnect with people too much. And so I'm kind of just interested in just interacting and having fun. And maybe if it's somebody who's a little on the annoying side, once I notice that they're kind of a little obnoxious, I'll be like, cool, we can like go to a movie or something where we don't have to talk, or like, and if I've ever invited you to a movie, it's not because I don't want to talk to you, but sometimes it's like, let's work around the issue of, this kind of weird communication thing that's just obnoxious. Like sometimes it's like, yeah, we'll go to dinner, eat, and then go to a movie or something where it's like, we're not forced to like socially interact, because like I can only really take this person for 30-40 minutes or something, like that kind of thing. And most people would be like, well, why are you even gonna hang out with them? It's like, well, I see more benefit to hanging out with them, even if it's like 40 minutes for eating and then a couple hours at a movie, versus like not hanging out with them at all. I really like different types of people and people in general. So, when I start investing, more time and like emotional energy and things like that, usually it just takes a lot of energy out of me. So with other people's energies, I don't really like to be like drained by their energy. Like if it's someone I'm going to be around so regularly, I don't like to be drained. So I'm the same way with roommates. I'm the same way with family. I'm the same way with anybody who I've kind of like lived with or been around very long term. It's like, I need them to kind of be chill. So, like maybe right after work, I'm not trying to have some deep conversation about their life problems or whatever, it's kind of like, yeah, I don't really know how, like my kind of like, I would say my mood kind of like, kind of can change pretty often depending kind of how my day is going. I mean, I don't really sleep too good, and so who knows how I'm gonna feel when I'm waking up. And then like now I start work at like 8 a.m, so that's a little early, honestly, even though I'm awake. Like I think the other day I woke up like right near my alarm. I was like, wow, I woke up at like 7:50 something. Like that's super late for me. Like I'm usually up at like 5. Like now that's like the sun's not even out yet and I'm up. And then sometimes by the time work starts, it's like, because I haven't had breakfast or anything, I'm like already kind of getting a little groggy and I'm a little tired. And then yeah, but yeah, like that kind of makes it so I have to eat a certain way in certain times, and things have to be pretty structured in my daytime. And then depending kind of how my schedule looks, because it is pretty flexible, but like I can't really tell, somebody gonna call, am I gonna be like on a phone call or like in a meeting or whatever, like well, meetings are scheduled, but yeah, I can't really totally predict my schedule. Like sometimes I need it to be pretty flexible, because like I'm getting calls back or people really need something. You can't really wait like a whole entire 30 minutes, about something. And some people, I need them to call me back, or I need to like talk to them, and then like I don't want to like miss the call, and I'm like right there. So it's like, yeah, maybe I won't eat at 12, maybe I'll eat at like 1:40 or something like that. Like it's kind of different meal times, different, sometimes I work out during lunch. Like it's just do errands and things. Like it's pretty flexible, but I think for me that's not too helpful, as well as living with somebody who is quite wild. There is somebody who's okay, this just like kind of gets things more, and then there's kind of someone else who's kind of on the needier level, who's like, the kind of person that you don't really want to get like stuck in a conversation. But I'm totally comfortable just being like, all right, like I gotta go. Like I don't really like let myself feel bad because I'm feeling burdened by this person. And sometimes I'll just be like, yeah, I'll chat with him for like 2-3 hours, but that's not like a daily thing. Like I'm not trying to get like some daily deep kind of like somebody venting at me for like a couple hours, because they literally will. Like, I'm usually the one who walks away first, so it's like they're gonna do that. And then I've got this other person who just, I don't even know her connection to like what. I don't even want to get into it, honestly, because it's just too much. But I hope she moves. She means well. She's nice to me, but oh my gosh, like, she's noisy. You know, she's up early in the morning. She stomps around. She kind of does a bunch of odd stuff. She's got some other things going on, but it's like, I mean, I feel for her, but at the same time, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, it really, really messes with my sleep too. So I'm like, okay, if you're waking up at 2:30, like, you know, checking the doors and turning on and off the lights and stomping all over the house and slamming the gate and like driving your car, and then you come back in and you're slamming the doors and you're stomping all over, and you decide you want to cook some dinner, and then you come knocking on my door at 2:30 in the morning, things like that. It's like, oh, like, I know that, you know, she means well, but oh my gosh, she just, yeah, I don't know, she gets in these kind of like, I don't know, situations, episodes that kind of come out, and it's like, honestly, it's like, dude, you gotta like calm it way down. And she has like no awareness, and she'll argue with people, and it's like, Jesus. But I don't know, I don't have a problem with her as a person. It's just her behaviors, and she can't really control a lot of stuff too, or if she can, she's not doing it. Often, like, she's gotten better, but it's like still a lot. It's a lot to be in a house with a bunch of people where you're stuck in the house all the time, and then there's not just you there, and I can't really have people over, and it's just kind of this whole thing. So I'm gonna stop ranting about that. But that kind of energy, I could not live with that. I cannot deal with that. I you know, I know I'm gonna be moving. I mean, I just gotta wait for some options to open up, and you know, I'm gonna wait this out. I mean, if it gets like really bad to a point where, you know, I've gone out of town, or like gone to just like a hotel or whatever. I love hotels, honestly, because it's just like, I can just chill by myself and like, leave me alone. No roommates, no nobody. Just like, I can just chill in here and just well, there's certain hotels that I've had super good luck like that. And then there are other ones where like you get there and you're like, thank God it's calm, and then it's not. But it's still usually better than like just having, like, I kind of try not to let myself get too overwhelmed, to have options. And I can technically, if I really had to, I could just pay a lot more rent and just move somewhere, like, but I would also say that that's the majority of what Ralph Smart talked about that kind of hit home for me. I kind of added a whole lot of my own twists on things, but him talking about why somebody might be single, I mean, those are a lot of the kind of topics, and then expanded on those topics that kind of came up. And I think he was, you know, I like the way he approached it. I know there are a lot of people who mention that, you know, people are single for, you know, like a lot, I don't know, like a lot of people seem like they don't want to be single. I don't know if that's ever been kind of something I've experienced, but I'll say that the way I date people is quite flexible as well. Like, I'm kind of down for just about anything between, like, okay, we're hanging out and we're buddies, and anything that's kind of more than that, all the way to, like, I mean, I'm not really moving in with anybody, just because I want to get my own place, and so I don't think I want to move with somebody. That's something I'm really trying to not do. I mean, I'm not like, that's not even a situation that's coming up right now, but it has before, but I'm not trying to do that. That's kind of not, I think I need to take like some years and just live by myself. I've lived with people for so long, and I know a lot of people don't mind it, and like I know I could move technically, but I actually like where I live. I'm like right across the street from a hiking trail, so I love it. Um, but I don't know. Like I've kind of calmed down about things, and they bother me a whole lot less, so that's fine. And then I would say, yeah, people a lot of times don't want to be single. They don't find it as an appealing kind of state to be in. I've never experienced that because like I've had friends and then people who are kind of more than friends, but I'm not too rigid within those types of things. It's like, I mean, with most of my friends, we kind of know that that's just what we are. Like, there's never really, I think there's been like maybe one person where it was a little bit confusing, where it's like, what are we actually doing here? Because this feels like we're kind of like doing something way more than just buddies. But I mean, yeah, but whatever. I mean, I was not complaining. I'm just saying, like, sometimes somebody might want to make things more clear. But I'm kind of down for any kind of version of whatever that may look like. I usually don't mind if I'm with somebody who's dating somebody else. I mean, cheating is different than, some kind of open relationship or some kind of understanding that, it's not like too, yeah, just something that's more open between, people being able to kind of date other people or whatever, or be with other people in other ways that are more than just like friends of some sort. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't usually care. Most of the people where it's been a situation like that, I have known. It wasn't like a surprise. It wasn't like, oh, by the way, I'm poly, or like, it wasn't like I already knew what their kind of situation was. And they're pretty clear on, I'm just looking for this, or I'm just looking for that, or like, this is, I'm married, or like, I have this other thing going on over here, or like, whatever. Like, I don't really care. Like, I've never been in a situation where somebody hasn't like told me, or where I didn't like already know that initially about them. I mean, I think it would bother me if somebody was cheating. I'm pretty sure that would bother me. But I don't really see myself being in that position so much. I've never set any like really clear, like, hey, you can't date other people with somebody. I mean, I've had other people kind of, that was their preference, that neither of us is going to be dating anybody else. But I don't really care. Like, but yeah, I mean, I don't mind being like in monogamous relationships. That doesn't like bother me. Do I prefer it early on? No. I'd rather just date like whoever the heck. Like, life is short. There's not that much time in my schedule. Like, I can't just be waiting on like one person to be like available or to make plans with just like, I kind of like variety, in all honesty, but not that much variety. It doesn't have to be, I'm not trying to date like 8 people, and I'm usually only really just kind of dating one person, and then maybe might go on a couple other dates and like be kind of feeling somebody out, but I'm not usually like just like dating everybody. And I don't cheat on people either. That's not really I don't think I could do that. Like, I don't really know. I would rather just not be with them anymore. If, like, or take a break or something. I don't think I would want to cheat on somebody. I mean, I can't say it would never happen, because I've heard a lot of people say like, oh, like it was an accident or like whatever. But I mean, I don't think I could see myself in a situation like that. I mean, I would say maybe if I was like super drunk or something, I could see that happening. Like, I don't really get super drunk. I mean, I have had a time period where I was like kind of into that kind of thing, but I don't even really like alcohol anymore so much. It's just part of the culture of where I live, so everybody likes to go out for drinks, and so I don't mind doing it, but um it's not like ideal for me, so I'm not really um too into that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think I could cheat on somebody. Like, I don't know. But I mean, it's just never really come up. So I guess if it's something I ever get faced with, then I'll know if it's something that um is something I'm capable of doing. But I mean, I think everybody has the potential to do good things, bad things, make mistakes, whatever. Like, so I don't know. I wouldn't put it past myself, but I just don't see it as something that's really come up as like an issue on my end or anybody's end that I've kind of ever been around like that. Like, I don't really know. Like, if I've dated somebody who's ever like, oh, like I want to cheat or something. Like, I don't know. Um, I really have no idea. I don't know. But I mean, like, people kind of, I guess it kind of depends on their arrangement. Like, once there's some kind of conversation about like what are the rules for things or what are the expectations, somebody might really be like, I really don't want you dating people, and then somebody else might just be like, I don't really care what you're doing. So and it's hard to really know, and it might change. Like, people might change their minds and then have to talk about it again. But I think some things are best when they're not out of like being vindictive or, trying to like get back at somebody, revenge or some kind of weird thing like that. Like, I and then like jealousy on the other end and things like that. Like,